Hello and welcome to the Gaggle, where we challenge and, if necessary, destroy media narratives. With me today is Peter Lavelle, co-founder of the Gaggle, and of course, host of RT's show Crosstalk, and I am George Szamuely. Peter, yesterday I came across an article in the Atlantic, written again by its editor-in-chief, Jeffrey Goldberg, and it was based on a long interview with Alexander Vindman, whom we remember from the impeachment era, which now seems so long ago. The article was hard to read because almost all of it was infuriating and false. But it's of a piece with Goldberg's repugnant article from a week ago, which we had also discussed concerning Trump's supposed contempt for the military. What did you make of this article, Peter?
Well, first of all, what was most infuriating is that he's just continuing to peddle Russiagate. I mean, this is beyond absurd. Number two, he gave such a one-sided portrait of Vindman. I mean, if you go back and look at his testimony, he was humiliated. I mean, he was not an elected official, and he's was prancing about as if he was a foreign policy decision maker, and he was a minor player. And Goldberg didn't even address that issue whatsoever. I mean, Goldberg didn't address any of the substance of what surrounds Vindman, okay? And constantly egging him on. Do you think that Trump is a useful idiot for the Russians? I mean, he keeps pounding away at that. And of course, Vindman couldn't substantiate that, though he had his suspicions and kind of went along with Goldberg. I mean, it was really interesting how Vindman was just a very passive figure in the article. Also, Goldberg didn't even make mention of the fact that Vindman had been offered, we are told anyway, to be the defense minister of Ukraine. And far as I'm concerned, I think that there is a dual loyalty in play here. Also,
that's a very good point, and it brings up a point that I was thinking about as I was reading that. Is that Jeffrey Goldberg himself had served in the Israeli military. And everything that we know about Vindman, he was born in the USSR, sort of came to as a small child, very, very attached to Ukraine, clearly entered the administration with one goal only, which was to advance Ukraine's interests. It's very strange that, that very issue, which is dual loyalty, which master are you serving, really doesn't come up. And it should come up when people, both Goldberg and Vindman, are alleging that the president is a traitor. That's what they're saying, that the president is a traitor. And so you really do have to say, well, who are you working for? Where do your loyalties lie?
Well, and of course, Goldberg's first, I mean, it's very clear that from his writing, he's an Israel firster as well. Okay. So, I mean, he's accusing Trump of being an agent of a foreign government, which in fact, Vindman appeared to be exactly that. He didn't also mention, Goldberg didn't mention that Vindman had been reprimanded at least once for disparaging U.S. policy and his superiors. He left that out of the story as well.
Yes.
And he threw in this line, Vindman's memories or perceptions of communism and Putinism. I mean, when did Vindman leave Ukraine? Was he scarred by communism? And, let's say the truth here. I mean, his family was allowed to emigrate. Okay.
Well, that's a very good point. And because Goldberg uses the word fled. And I particularly took note of that. His family fled the Soviet Union. Now, the family was permitted to leave by the Soviet authorities, and it took place at a time of détente between the Soviet Union and the United States. The very détente that people like Goldberg and Vindman today, fume about. Any benign talk by a U.S. president about Russia, any attempt to get on with Russia is excoriated and denounced as treasonous. Yet it was this particular policy that was pursued by successive U.S. presidents that allowed Vindman's family to leave the USSR.
Also, also, in reading the tone of the article, didn't you get the impression, George, that the Cold War is still going on? Did you get the impression the Soviet Union still exists? Did you get the impression that Russia is ruled by the communist Politburo? I mean, that's the whole tone of it right there.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, yes. That's exactly right. And in fact, Goldberg uses expressions like, well, the people who are running foreign policy are strongly committed to strengthening the U.S.-Ukraine relationship. He takes this as axiomatic. Well, shouldn't their priority be to advance U.S. national interest, not to strengthen the U.S.-Ukraine relationship? That's not the job that they're assigned to do. But Goldberg said, yeah, that's what you're supposed to do. You strengthen the U.S.-Ukraine relationship, and then you're supposed to thwart Russian malevolent behavior in the Baltics and the Ukraine. When is that part of the job description? I mean, if you're in the National Security Council, as Vindman was, you are supposed to implement the foreign policy that is advanced by the elected president. The man who ran the one national office that you run on in the United States. That's what you're supposed to do, not advance Ukraine interests.
And on top of it, the Trump administration, at least for the early part of the Trump administration, was only continuing the policy of the Obama administration towards Ukraine. Also, I thought it was quite obnoxious, to be honest, that Goldberg didn't have the guts to mention that because of the U.S. Backing of the illegal coup in Ukraine in 2014, up to 13,000 people in the Donbass are dead.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah. No, that's exactly right.
And the nature of the regime in Kiev in its origins was not addressed whatsoever. Which is just obnoxious, okay? Because you don't get any context at all. All you get is this: here is this bright immigrant star believing in the American dream, and he can make a difference and all that. I mean, it just kind of just milk toast. This is just this is like. In communist countries, they had something called the propaganda of success, and this is exactly propaganda of success for empire. Right. Also, Goldberg is too lazy or too stupid or both. But Trump has been far harder on Russia than Obama ever was. Okay?
Well, that's exactly the point. That in fact, in this article, over and over again, Vindman, and obviously Goldberg is in agreement, says, well, he's doing Putin's bidding. He's doing things that, that Putin wants. Name one thing that he's done that Putin wants. I mean, there isn't anything. I mean, the only thing you could say is that, well, he hasn't gone to war with Russia. Presumably, that's the only thing that would satisfy Vindman. And even then, if he didn't go hard enough, he didn't bomb Moscow the first day, that would also be shown, he was Putin's agent all along. There's no evidence whatsoever that's presented that Trump has done anything at all that is friendly to Russia and is advancing Putin's interest. And Goldberg doesn't even tell him, well, can you name me, 6 things that he's done that helps Putin.
Let's talk about the most recent one. The one that's in play right now is that the U.S. government is pulling out all the stops to stop the Nord Stream underwater pipeline from Russia to Germany. They're doing everything in their capacity to do that. I mean, I don't want to shock anybody, but the Nord Stream started before Trump became president. Okay, yeah. I mean, on every single metric. And this is, we have to take Trump's words at face value. He wanted to have better relations with Russia, but his administration has actually worsened relations with Russia. So Vindman should be very complimentary of the Trump administration if that's what he wants.
That's
I
right.
mean, the whole thing is a short circuit. It doesn't make any sense. And that's why this kind of journalism has no context whatsoever. And then he says Fiona Hill is also an immigrant from England. No, I think she's from Scotland. Sorry, Goldberg, they're different places,
But
okay?
also, the funny thing with you mentioned Fiona Hill is that she's quoted as saying, "Well, Vindman's career has been derailed. Now, normally, when you serve in the National Security Council, that helps your career. But these aren't normal times, and this isn't a normal administration." Well, gee, if you try to bring down an elected president that you are supposed to be serving, maybe that's not the best way to advance your career. It doesn't occur to Fiona and she did the same thing when she was testifying during the impeachment hearings, outraged that Masha, the terrible things that were done to little Masha, who got this job as U.S. ambassador. It was horrific. Every single president appoints his own ambassadors. That's the perk of being president. You give these ambassadorships to your friends.
I think Trump,
Masha have to expect that job for life.
didn't Trump recall all ambassadors at the, I'm sorry, didn't Obama?
Obama fired all the ambassadors, exactly. First day. It's standard practice. Yeah,
no
you appoint your own people. Yeah.
Yeah, because what was Masha doing in Ukraine? She was looking after Joe Biden's interests there because Hunter got himself into such a mess. Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
That's what
and if you remember,
Masha was doing.
And if you remember during Masha's testimony when she was asked, well, you say you were very upset about corruption in Ukraine and you were badgering the government to do something about corruption. Can you name me one case that you badgered the government on? Well, let me think about that. I'll come back to you. She couldn't even name one case in which she pressed the Ukrainian government to investigate. And yet, yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, we could talk about Masha and Fiona and little Vindman and his twin brother. If you didn't like the policy, walk away.
Walk away. Exactly. Resign. That's what you do. That's what you do. Resign. Yeah. Go back to serving in the military. You're supposed to be so patriotic. You don't have to work in the National Security Council. But if you do work there, you have to implement the president's policy. You don't just implement your own policy.
Or you can go to Ukraine and be defense minister. Come on, you got options, man.
Exactly. Or, if they don't want you, you can, get a backpack, a rifle, go fight the Russians in eastern Ukraine. Go fight in Belarus or go fight in the Baltics, wherever you want to. If you're so upset about the Russian malevolent behavior.
But see, this tells us so much about what the world of media is grounded down to, and it talks about what public service is all about. If you don't like what an administration does, it's time to pack up and leave with some decorum. All right, and that is all lost right now.
Yes.
What I worry about, George, is the damage people like Goldberg and Vindman do to institutions, and I don't know if they're repairable. So it means now is that you have people part of the permanent bureaucracy. They feel emboldened because they read Goldberg's article about Vindman. The whole idea of public service is turned upside down. Okay. And we're all going to pay for it in the future. Okay. It's really dreadful. And Goldberg, I mean, wow, he hit it out of the park 2 weeks in a row. My goodness. Okay.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. That these middle levels, a lieutenant colonel is actually pretty junior in the chain of command. The notion that they are running foreign policy, I mean, it's absolutely insane, and it's amazing that people like Goldberg or Michael McFaul simply echo this. And then that somehow, yes, well, these are the people who are supposed to be running policy, not the elected president, but ththese mid-level officials.
And
all right, thank you, Peter. Unfortunately, time runs out very quickly when we get onto these subjects. So if you like the gaggle, please like, share, and subscribe. See you soon. Bye.